Thank you, and thank you for having me here today. And I'm really honored to follow Bruce. When we started the Artificial Pancreas project, Aaron and I back at JDRF in 2005, Bruce was one of the handful of people that were interested in research in devices. It was a very small group. I think a meeting, I met Bruce in a small room. Without him, there would be no Artificial Pancreas, so thank you for your many years of leadership in this space. So we don't really use the term artificial pancreas at Bigfoot because it implies a bunch of things people assume about the technology that it really isn't. We prefer automated insulin delivery. But that's just a small part of what I'm going to talk about. Artificial pancreas or automated insulin delivery is a solved problem. That kind of sounds silly because we can't get one, most people. But in 2007, we funded research that proved that closing the loop between a sensor and a pump, and the sensors weren't nearly as good back then, was better than what people were doing for themselves. We then went on and did a bunch of other trials using various pumps and sensors around the world and really showed that that was safer, convinced the FDA. This is actually a solved problem by people with type 1 diabetes too. 4 years ago, my co-founder Brian Maslish actually hacked into a pump and a sensor and created the world's first ambulatory real-world artificial pancreas system that his wife and son have been continuously using for now over 4 years. It's transformed their lives. And now hundreds of people around the world have done that for themselves and copied that formula. So this is a solved problem from a technology perspective. What's really not solved is how to build a solution that everybody can use and that is going to get reimbursed and prescribed by doctors. And this is the challenge that Bigfoot has undertaken. So when we talk about what we're doing, we're taking, I think, a somewhat different approach. We're focusing on the person who uses the technologies. It's one thing for what the doctor thinks the person needs. It's one thing for what the parents, and I was one of those diabetes police, I confess, when my son was in the home. I now realize that. But the person with the disease is the one that's important because they're the ones using the tools, and if the tools don't work for them, they just don't work. Full stop. So we start with them and we say, what works for them? Well, in order to do that, you need to have some innovation, not just in the technology, you also have to have an innovation in the business model for delivering the technology. Both of these things are challenged today. And let me tell you a little bit what I mean. Well, if it's not reimbursed, it's not going anywhere. It needs to be reimbursed. And we need to make that as a company easy for you. The doctor shouldn't be fighting the battle. The patient shouldn't be convincing the insurance company. It's the company's job to go to the payer and say, this works, it saves you money, the patient does better, and you're going to reimburse it. We, as a company, need to take that battle off your hands. We also have to make it easier for the doctors to prescribe it. A scary fact is that most people with type 1 diabetes are actually treated by primary care providers, not endocrinologists, 66%. So the ability of those doctors to prescribe today's insulin pumps and sensors and configure and interpret data and go back and forth to support the usage of complex devices, it's just not there. In fact, endocrinologists don't have time to do it either. It needs to be easier, and that's the company that needs to do that. It needs to take all the wonderful technologies that we have today and wrap them up so that it is more usable. Needs to do it like Apple would do it. And then at the end of the day, it is all designed for the patient. But you have to solve these customer problems across these different classes. It has to make sense for the payer, it has to work for the doctor, and it has to work for the person. That's why these businesses are hard to build, because you have 3 different customers and they all need different things. But what we think they all need is they need a singular solution. They don't need 10 prescriptions that the doctor has to write for pumps and reservoirs and sensors and transmitters and receivers and blood glucose monitors and test strips and down to the Lancet, which you throw out anyway. That doesn't serve anybody's interest. It's burdensome for the doctor to have to worry about all that stuff being reimbursed and just writing the prescriptions, wasting 15 minutes of time of the most precious resource in medicine. It's crazy. And then as patients, you have to run around and go to the pharmacy and the company and the mail order pharmacy, and then you got to do inventory management in your kitchen, and then you throw out after 3 months all the stuff that's expired. That's crazy too. And then it's also crazy because the payers are paying for all that, and they know a lot of the stuff's being thrown out that isn't being used. It's crazy for everybody but us medical device companies. We're going to solve that. That's the business model innovation. It's one prescription, and we provide you all that stuff that you need for that one prescription and one copay. You talk about making it easier. Artificial pancreas is a part of that, and auto configuration of pumps and algorithms and machine learning, that's all great. But just give me the stuff I need to use the darn thing, and make it easy to do so and cost effective to do so. That's part of the innovation that we need to bring. So for Bigfoot, it's not going to be buying a pump that you have to wait 4 years to upgrade. You're going to be paying for a service, or your insurance company will, and your copay will be for that. Every month, you're going to have the latest hardware, the latest software, all the pieces you need to use it. That's the way the rest of our lives work. I don't understand why it can't be the case in medical device. So we're going to have a bit of a collection, an ecosystem of our own here, and it's for people on shots, just like it is for people on pumps, because not everybody's going to wear a pump. And maybe people want to switch back and forth. How would that be? Maybe sometimes you want to wear a pump, and other times when you're on a beach vacation, you're going to inject yourself with insulin. I used to go to the beach with my son and chase him around to try and put the infusion set back on to get some insulin into him. Wash off 3 infusion sets in the stand. You know, it's crazy, right? Why weren't we on shots? Because it's hard to switch back and forth. It's just another thing you got to think about. You got to plan for. When do I put the pump back on? When does the Lantus run out? With us, you go on shots. You put the pump back on. The pump will start when the Lantus runs out, because I know that in software. That's what technology can do. And so when we talk about smart technology, let's take technology and solve some very practical problems, like the transition between shots and infusion. I don't have to be a pump person. I don't have to be a shots person. I can be both. Why can't I be both? The technology should fit around the person. We make some of these components on the insulin infusion side. We're going to partner for the glucose side and deliver something that uses this supercomputer we carry around in our pockets all day, the phone. And not a phone that's sent to you by Bigfoot, but the one you buy at the Apple store. And it's going to be an interface to a chronic disease management system, and it's going to be much easier to use. It is a way that focuses the technology to support how people live, not making them contort themselves around how the technology works. It's a consumer approach, because we're focused on the patient. This is a hard company to build. It requires a lot of competencies. You have to know consumers and industrial design and interface design. You have to know about data science and machine learning and all that stuff we know about in Silicon Valley. But then you also have to know about stuff that medical device companies know about and have been doing for many years in terms of Class 3 medical devices, dealing with the FDA, doing clinical trials, auditing suppliers who provide parts to the system that you make, that the FDA regulates. All that's very expensive and complicated and requires a lot of talent. I think Bigfoot is probably the smallest company that you could possibly imagine, 50 people now, that could do all this stuff under one roof. This is the reason this hasn't been solved before, because these are very hard businesses to build and capitalize, but I'm proud to say that we have assembled a team, recently reached 50 people. 40% of them actually are touched by type 1 diabetes. I think about a dozen of them have it. A bunch of people have kids with it, including the 4 founders, wives, husbands. It's a team that knows what problem we're solving, and I think that gives us a real advantage in terms of how we're going to move forward. So I'm up here to talk about artificial pancreas, but really what Bigfoot's goal is to make life easier and safer. That's what we're trying to do, and happy to have an opportunity to talk to you about it today. Thank you for your time.